Unity is for the weak. Domination and enslavement, now that's the only way to ensure that you are on top. That is the way of the Black Mana-aligned faction of New Phyrexia. And amongst them, at the very top, there is a wicked, nightmarish creature who stalks and lurks, waiting for her moment to strike. A fatal blow that will allow her to crawl and skitter up to the top of the world itself. A spider with a trap waiting to become the leader of the plane and then the entire multiverse. You know her, you fear her in literally every single format. The Whispering One herself, Sheoldred. Among New Phyrexia's 5 Praetors, Sheoldred is the most ruthless, no question. And that's due in part at least to the philosophy that she embodies. You see, each Praetor or leader of New Phyrexia represents one of Magic's basic 5 colors of mana. Urbarask, who we just talked about last week, embodies Red's freedom. Jin-Gitaxias pursued Blue's goals of perfection through knowledge. The green man at Vorinclex believed that only the strongest deserve to survive, while the queen, Elesh Norn herself, dreamed of absolute unity and order with her white mana origins. By the way, very quickly, speaking of Vorinclex, it's absolutely crazy the fact that you're seeing this video right now is because last week you went absolutely nuts and against my expectations actually gave Urbarask 1,000 likes in 48 hours, so here we are talking about Sheoldred a week later. And so if you want to see Vorinclex next Friday, well, let's try something crazier, and let's say if this video gets 1,200 likes in the first 48 hours, Vorinclex next week. Let's see if we can make it happen. But anyways, back to all the Praetors and their philosophies. There was Sheoldred, a Praetor who didn't care for camaraderie. She desired power and absolute perfection through it. Her ambition made her one of the most dangerous figures in all of Phyrexia's and Magic's history, new and old. Something I think they expressed in all of her cards quite nicely. And, big shocker, just like Yawgmoth himself, the OG Phyrexian god, she was also aligned with black mana. Now, that by herself of course doesn't make her evil necessarily, despite the big spooky skull and, you know, the usual evil vibes the mana has. Black has tons of heroes too. Look at our girl Lily. But the philosophy still leans kind of evil because those who have it usually value ambition, self-determination, and the pursuit of power. You know, like basically Slytherin coded, but less snakes. More spiders. So, as you can imagine, when you give a crazy race of flesh machine conquerors this mana type, you get the spider mommy herself, Sheoldred, and the absolutely crazy lore that comes with her. In case you didn't know, she got her title of the Whispering One because she came to rule New Phyrexia's festering dross pits through fear, manipulation, and a lot of political scheming. And boy, do I love myself a good schemer. She wasn't interested in leading from the front lines or inspiring devotion the way that Elesh Norn did. Instead, she decided to weave influence in the shadows, rewarding useful allies and discarding those who failed her, if you catch my drift. She kills them, right? In her eyes, the multiverse belonged to whomever was strong enough to take it. Something that actually made her a valuable asset to the Grand Cenobite Norn herself. But how did she even get there? What became of her after the invasion, and why she's so intertwined with the Planeswalkers Karn and, my man, a Johnny Goldmane? Well, let's first see how she rose to power, and then what ensued because of it. Wait, what's that? Oh no, it's time.
That's right, I'm back to remind you about Dragon Month coming this August to Manu Crypt. Put down that Phyrexian baby oil and bust out your Dragon commanders, because August is all about the real monsters. These ain't your mama's dragons, these are the real deal. 4 consecutive weeks of dragon lore so ridiculously sick, you're never gonna be the same again. We've got Ugin, the Elder Dragons, the Goat Sarkhan, and even the Dragon Spirits of Kamigawa for you anime nerds. So, hit subscribe, you sick freaks, and prepare yourselves for Dragon Month this August. Now go back to learning about that spider-legged loser.
Sheoldred, the Whispering One. Just like the other Praetors, as you know at this point, Sheoldred emerged during the transformation of Mirrodin into New Phyrexia. Long story short here, father of machines Karn, Magod, created a plane as a god, it was taken over by his kid, and then became Mirrodin. Then, when Karn returned to Mirrodin, his Phyrexian core was a little bit clunky funky and started leaking the glistening oil all around, and as it slowly spread and seeped throughout the plane, it was twisted into a wicked mirror of the original Phyrexia. And as that happened, the 5 sons of the plane made manifest their own wicked version of themselves, the Praetors. And with time, each layer eventually and slowly fell under the rule of each of these 5 Praetors. Now, for our purpose today here, as we get toxic, we enter the Dross Pits, a landscape of corroded metal, toxic waste, and endless decay. Long story short, she was a junkyard queen. Sort of. Interestingly enough, Sheoldred wasn't able to just dominate her part of the plane the same way that Jin-Gitaxias say. See, by the way, I learned to say it right, and Urbarask did. Before our lurching spider Sheoldred could actually stand alone, she actually shared power with 6 other powerful Phyrexians, collectively known as the 7 Steel Thanes. These warlords just constantly acted against one another, trying to usurp each other, right? Each believing that they were the ones who deserved to stand at the top of Black Phyrexian society. And unsurprisingly, Sheoldred crushed it in this environment. Through political maneuvering and calculated violence, Sheoldred eventually established herself as the dominant power within the Dross Pits, becoming the one true Praetor of the Black Aligned faction. But as you can probably imagine, ruling one layer of New Phyrexia was never gonna be enough for her. Her spider web needed to spread slowly, further and wider, beyond belief. Unfortunately for her, her co-workers were trying to do exactly the same thing too though, and so as New Phyrexia slowly continued to evolve, the 5 Praetors increasingly found themselves at odds over what their perfect world should actually look like. And, as you know, Big Mom Elesh Norn was winning big time here. But Sheoldred still had no intention of becoming yet another faithful servant to the machine Orthodoxy. From her perspective, Norn's festering influence wasn't proof that she deserved to rule. It was simply another obstacle standing between Sheoldred and the throne she deserved. And so she began, say it with me, scheming. Correct. Through a series of many events that I discuss in way more detail in my Elesh Norn video, our white manor savior, Norny Girl, successfully established her machine Orthodoxy as the dominant leading force on New Phyrexia, stomping out the forces of every faction, including Sheoldred's, forcing them to act under her will. But Norn isn't that bad, so she actually let the rival factions stick around and let the other Praetors retain control over their respective factions so long as they acted on her orders. So, officially at least, Sheoldred bent the knee to the flesh and porcelain prophet, but we know more. We know that this was just part of Sheoldred's bigger plan. And so while Norn celebrated this newly unified New Phyrexia, Sheoldred patiently searched for weaknesses, cultivating her own allies amongst the Steel Thanes, and waited for the right opportunity to prove what she'd believed from the very beginning, that power is all that truly matters. Something that was about to happen as she invaded the main plane of Magic the Gathering, New York City. No, I'm just kidding. Dominaria. But it's turning into it's Dominaria. The sleeper agents on Dominaria. Elesh Norn had spent years at this point tightening her grip slowly on New Phyrexia, and it was now time for this plan to get a move on. So Billie Eilish here sent Sheoldred on a death mission, very much knowing, that she had a problem with her. If Norn could conquer the birthplace of Phyrexia, their swiftly approaching invasion would become a piece of cake, as she would have a centralized hub to wage war out of, I assume. Not entirely sure if it was the artifacts and remnants that she wanted or if there was anything more, but it's easier said than done because it turns out that the birthplace of Phyrexia was Dominaria. Now, If you're unfamiliar with it, Dominaria is basically Magic's main setting and home to the most powerful planeswalkers across the Blind Eternities. Now for our purposes in this video, it's just very important to know that this is also where Yawgmoth first created the original Phyrexians. Inside the area now known as the Caves of Koilos, a portal existed to the original plane of Phyrexia, and it also had a ton of ancient artifacts and relics that would prove incredibly useful to the new shots. So if Sheoldred could take over Dominaria and somehow survive re-establishing the Caves of Koilos as her domain, then everything would be awesome for Elesh Norn, and Sheoldred was definitely capable of doing it because she's a sneaky little scheming bug woman. So she was sent over by Tezzeret, an ally of New Phyrexia who used his planar bridge artifact in his chest to send her there. Now, the unlucky side effect that we already talked about in Urbarask's video was that her flesh and organic matter were just totally scorched and fried during the trip, and she needed to recover big time. As a result of this, one of her greatest assets became the very ambitious scholar, Rona. Now, this girl was, how do we put this, very messed up and just obsessed with recovering the lost legacy of old Phyrexia, so when she came across a living, real Phyrexian, Rona willingly aligned herself with Sheoldred. We love that for them, I guess. And through Rona and countless hidden Phyrexian cells, Sheoldred slowly expanded her influence while much of Dominaria remained completely unaware. Now, thank goodness there were still some Phyrexian supporters on Dominaria, those who worshipped Gix, Mishra, and other Dominarian groups during the original Phyrexian invasion, but this time, Sheoldred decided to be way better about her invasion. Unlike the loud, overwhelming assaults Phyrexia was famous for, Sheoldred chose a much quieter approach. One that actually fit her title perfectly. She whispered. Beneath Dominaria itself, my girl Sheo quietly began spreading Phyrexian influence, avoiding the attention of the wider multiverse, and her main source of power here was a vast network of sleeper agents that she slowly established across the plane. Completed victims, people, and creatures turned into Phyrexians that would navigate and help source her desires. Even more shocking though was the return of, well, someone I've actually never really got to talk about on this channel, one of the original Weatherlight crew, the Great Wizard Ertai. I don't think we've ever talked about Ertai in like any video so far. Anyway, that's him. Through some shady dark magics, Ertai was somehow restored by New Phyrexia and entered Sheoldred's service as one of her most capable agents. Now, for context here, Ertai was part of the original crew that tried to defeat Yawgmoth but was then abandoned and then influenced to join Phyrexia's side. He was, of course, a Dominarian at his core and a mighty powerful one at that, so he quickly became one of Sheoldred's mightiest commanders on the plane. And with Rona pursuing ancient relics and Ertai carrying out delicate missions, Sheoldred possessed exactly the kind of tools that she'd been sent for, but none of these victories even come close to comparing to the prize that Sheoldred truly wanted: Karn. Since he was the creator of Mirrodin, Karn wasn't just another planeswalker to the Phyrexians. He was their father. He was responsible for their very creation, and his body contained immense knowledge of Phyrexia itself. His mind was just this wealth of knowledge of bygone eras and the future, so capturing him would be an extraordinary victory. So during the events of Dominaria United, Sheoldred's forces finally managed to do exactly that. In a wicked battle involving all her commanders, Sheoldred infused herself into a dragon engine, a very powerful artifact creature used in the original Phyrexian era, tying back to Mishra and Urza. I'll have a whole video on that too, but not the point. Through this adaptation, she was able to clash with the planeswalkers standing in her way, Karn, and a Johnny Goldmane. But fate has a very nasty way of working, and by that I mean that Sheoldred is a top-tier schemer, because it turns out that a Johnny, who was fighting alongside Karn, had already gotten stomped, completed, and secretly turned into a sleeper agent by Big Sheep. So, in that moment, he was activated, betrayed Karn, and then just cleaved his dang head off. Sheoldred won. Now, as you know, I really like to share fun little lore stuff that I find randomly, and I kind of think my favorite part of all of this is the shock reveal on top of Ajani to Karn that his former crewmate Ertai was with Sheoldred as well. It's actually depicted on the card Ertai's Scorn, and the flavor text shows us just how much vitriol existed in their dynamic, even beyond death. Anyhow, Sheoldred then returned home, and while Elesh Norn would ultimately take the credit for Phyrexia's growing success, Sheoldred had once again proven that she was the real threat. It was time for her to win it really bigly now. Sheoldred's web unravels. So, despite everything that she had very clearly accomplished on Dominaria, she was not really climbing the ranks. For some reason, definitely not consistent backstabbing and ruthless pursuit of power, Elesh Norn wasn't super keen on the idea of her moving up in power. So once her work on Dominaria had been completed, the Whispering One returned home to New Phyrexia, and since her insane accomplishments weren't enough, she wasted absolutely no time in destroying Elesh Norn once and for all. Now, since this is not the first video on the Praetors, as you notice, this is a little bit of a pattern amongst them, it seems. You know, the fact that they weren't exactly very keen on our lovely white commander. So within just a few weeks of her return, Sheoldred made her big move against Elesh Norn herself. While the Mother of Machines prepared for the greatest invasion in Phyrexian history, Sheoldred saw the perfect opportunity to seize the throne herself. Norn was busy, and she wouldn't see the spider claw dagger that is Sheoldred piercing between Norn's perfect, sultry, lovely shoulder blades. But, we've set this off before, Norn was very powerful. In fact, she'd only gotten stronger in Sheoldred's absence. So our Spider Queen really needed an ally, and thus, she entered one of the most unexpected alliances in New Phyrexian history. She joined forces with my boy Urbarask's rebellion. You can learn all about him in my video I dropped on him last week. Anyways, this new combo was absolutely something. And don't get me wrong, it definitely wasn't because these two Praetors suddenly saw eye to eye and like started weaving friendship bands, though I don't know, Sheoldred might be good at that. But if you've watched my Urbarask video, you'll know that these two couldn't have had more different ideas of what Phyrexia should look like. Urbarask believed completion should be a choice for only those worthy, while Sheoldred believed that power was inflicted from above, and those completed should serve her purpose. Now, if by any chance you're also a One Piece fan and follow my main channel, the idea that freedom and domination don't exactly mix very well, it's kind of obvious, right? Luckily, a mutual enemy is a perfect reason, though, to set aside your ideological differences, because the enemy of my enemy is my friend, or I guess something like that. All they knew was that Elesh Norn had to go. So, alongside Urbarask, Shelly here was supported by several of the surviving Steel Thanes, including Geth, Roxith, and my lovely vampire man, Ran. Together, they sought to overthrow the Mother of Machines in like the 11th hour of the March of the Machines, the total all-out war of the Phyrexians against the Multiverse. Unfortunately, for our merry band of conspirators, Elesh Norn was already one step ahead here because turns out she's kinda smart like that too, and having learned of the rebellion, Norn declared Sheoldred an apostate, a traitor to New Phyrexia, and everything the machine Orthodoxy stood for. And this of course completely just dismantled any chances at a sneak attack. Elesh Norn had kind of outplayed Sheoldred at her own game here, so checkmate Sheoldred. Her rebellion was crushed before it could truly ever begin, and she was eventually captured by none other than a Johnny Goldmane, the now completed planeswalker whose corruption she had actually helped set into motion herself during the events of Dominaria. Like, what a reversal of fortune here. Fate truly seemed to have favored Norn, not you, Sheoldred. Sorry. And so, as the Great Invasion Tree Realmbreaker pierced the blind eternities and the invasion of the multiverse officially began, a defeated but still defiant Sheoldred was dragged before Elesh Norn. Her many-legged spider body struggled to stand before the assembled Phyrexians. She was out in the open, where she really liked to be least vulnerable. Her betrayal, her sneaking around, an example was being made of her, and she couldn't do anything to stop it. Honestly, it's like such a wicked narrative play. The schemer was out-schemed and mocked openly. I kinda live for this type of irony personally. Norn condemned her long-term rival, declaring that in this version of New Phyrexia there was no place for those who sought personal power over perfect unity. And then she gave a single order. A Johnny Goldmane, Sheoldred's greatest weapon, was commanded to execute the Whispering One. Her creation was her own undoing, and with one swing of his axe, Sheoldred lost her head, becoming the first known New Phyrexian Praetor to actually die. A clear warning to anyone else who still dreamed of challenging the Grain Xenobite's rule, but as you might know, that didn't stop my man Urbarask from at least trying. And if you want to see how that turned out, who he might be working with, and what his freedom truly meant, and if he might have survived, check out this video where I break it all down for you. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Again, hit that like button if you want Vorinclex next week, and I will see you next week, hopefully. Have a wonderful day.